Hello everyone, welcome back. We are doing the next session on the live drawing. We've got Evan, as usual, here with his incredible art talent. And we have the three characters. We have Emma, who's playing Kuro. We have Leo, who's playing Nantaris. And I'm Rob, and I'm playing Lethvargi. And I believe we are going to be adding some colour and
value, lighting
that's the
information.
word.
Just kind of try to define the portraits a little bit more, paint out some of the line. Maybe we'll see where we get in an hour. I apologize, everybody, if I sound sick. I am sick. I will try my best to mute myself if I cough, but one or two may break through.
That's fine, I'm sure we'll cope. So yeah, for those of you that watched the stream on Sunday, we met up in the Yawning Portal and had quite an interesting first meeting, I think.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
Yeah.
Lethvargi's scars and demeanour in general being a bit of a weirdo put the other two off him, unsurprisingly.
Listen, everyone's D&D character looks weird.
That
It's what you do with it that's the problem.
weird things. Who are you? Just going to see you working on Nantaris.
I am currently working on Nantaris.
No, we're not doing
Yeah.
Nantaris, who has currently started the best adventure of his life.
I love that for him.
We just got down into the actual dungeon itself and decided, instead of following the obvious way, decided to ram through a wall and follow some running footsteps.
For the record, I wanted to go the obvious way. Just want to make that clear.
You can't leave an enemy behind you.
We don't know it was an enemy. It could have been a rat. We don't know.
It could have been a rat. But
They're also, like, in a brand new, potentially unexplored area.
that is true.
Like, how many people have walked past a hole in the wall?
Yeah.
Maybe they all did because it was nothing.
That is true.
I love the idea of people finding it, painstakingly taking that wall apart, exploring it and going, nah, nothing here, and then rebuilding the wall.
And we've just blown it apart.
You think we're going to rebuild the wall? We're not considerate like that.
Maybe we do on the way out. Maybe we realise that it was a complete misadventure and we shouldn't have done it. And we're like, oh no, quick, put it back, put it back.
Rebuild it better than before.
Yeah.
Without a hole, so the next party doesn't get tempted. Gotta be careful putting holes in things.
We, what was it? There was a weird kind of guardian on the other side, wasn't there, that tried to, looked like it was doing Hadoukens at us.
He's just doing his best.
He's trying, he's got
You
no
can't
vocal
fault him for
cords.
that. Maybe we should bring him with us.
I mean, one of the things I love to do is wind DMs up by being like, and we'll adopt that, and yes, we'll adopt that too, and oh, yeah, we'll definitely adopt that. So we just have this entourage.
In my game that I'm running on Fridays, I did that for my players, where I gave them each an NPC to adopt that they could like train to be their assistant or whatever. I think a couple sessions ago, one of them got in a fight with his NPC and punched him in the face, so they're not friends anymore. But I tried to do something nice for them.
That's why people don't get presents anymore.
Yeah, I don't give them nice things anymore.
I was in a game where we adopted an orc. We like trained the orc and was like properly treating it well, and then the first time we got into a fight, it died, and we were all
It's
very sad.
I ran a campaign where the players fell in love with this 70, 80-year-old jam seller and went on a wild adventuring spree, dragging this OAP along with them. And in the end, I was like, I'm going to have to give them something because they keep trying to protect them. So in the end, I was like, oh, she's a former adventurer. She was an alchemist. That's why she makes jams.
Magic jam.
Yep.
best kind of jam.
It's one of those things, right? Every party does it. If you just describe a random person that they happen to walk past and they're like, oh, this person, they're integral to the plot now, and you're like, but I just made up the name on the spot and there's nothing about them. Okay, they're now coming along for your entire adventure. Good.
That's why I have a list of names,
Yes.
so that if that happens, I can just whip it
Always
out.
useful. It's actually the first campaign I ever ran. They went into this this undead king's mountain halls, and so the undead king was based on Brian Blessed, and then he was kind of keeping all of these skeletons alive and enthralled, and there was one poor little skeleton called Harold who was actually not enthralled and was managing to and he managed to help the party like escape and defeat the king, and then they were like, we're going to take him with us, and I was like, fine, he's an undead skeleton in a world where that is a bad thing, he's going to cause unwanted attention. And one of the players was a leather worker and was like, I'm going to make them a mask to wear. Okay, roll to make them a leather mask, and they rolled like a 2, and I was like, fine, you have made like this horrific like skin mask for this skeleton. They're like, fine, it's going to wear it all the time, and that caused a lot of issues. And Harold was lovely. They ended up giving him to their favourite inn, and he washed the plates for this inn, and he's, as far as I know, still happily there washing plates.
That's funny because my game has a sentient skeleton that they adopted. His name is Simon, and his goal in life, or goal in death, was to free all of the other skeletons from their flesh prisons. And he's like a mini boss now.
Amazing.
And they're not sure what to do about him.
Strangely enough, actually, I've just finished playing a game of it's called Bones Deep, and it's based on it's an expansion to Troika, and basically what you're playing skeletons walking across the bottom of the ocean. You have no memory of who you were but beforehand, and it was so silly. We found a magic seahorse, and then we followed the magic seahorse to a magic cave of starfish, and it really silly, really fun. Like, the characters take about like 5 minutes to make, and if you die you just roll up another character, and that, like, I can recommend that. It's a very interesting game.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was.
I love me some ocean stuff.
So it sounds like it was an eventful first session then.
Yeah, it became very clear very quickly that it's a silly game, so we all just lent into that, and so my character in it, his job is to scribe. He basically scrimshaws himself and puts spells onto his bones, and then but his drive is to get rid of the spells from his bones so he can put more on. So at every opportunity, like, you see a thing, I'm casting a spell at it. A shoal of catfish come and attack you, I cast a spell at it. And the spells are things like, one of the spells is called Unexpected, so it costs a random amount of energy to cast and does a random thing, and 3 of us cast Unexpected at the same time. So I rolled to, I brought all of the animals that had ever been, kind of any remnants of animals were suddenly alive. So my leather backpack was suddenly a living leather backpack. All of the rations in all of our bags were suddenly alive. All of the dead fish from the seafloor over the last millennia or however long suddenly came to life, which was chaos incarnate. It was great fun. So when you're doing this stage of the values and stuff, do
Yeah.
you decide where the light is, or is there a standard direction where light comes from for paintings?
No, no, I try to decide where the light is coming
Okay.
from. It can, especially with something like a portrait, it can make a big difference. It's where a lot of the drama of a portrait comes from. Um, so yeah, I mean that's a big part of it. And really, I'm just going to keep pushing like darker and lighter with this until we have a pretty clear indication of where light's coming from and how that's kind of indicating all the surface materials of their clothes and beard and hair and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and it gives me a good map to follow once we move into color.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like taking notes or drawing an outline or writing an outline for an essay. You don't just like sit down and bang out a paper.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
speak for yourself.
Yeah,
I'm
Most
an
of us
English major.
don't.
That's exactly what I did.
I'm sure I did most of my essays at 3 o'clock in the morning the day before they were due, right?
All right, well, happy accidents exist.
That's not best
Um,
practice.
it's not best practice, and if you're planning on writing papers for a living, you probably want to develop some kind of like reliable process
Yeah.
to fall back on and not rely on happy accidents. And so that's what this kind of stuff is about,
Mm-hmm.
finding that process. So yeah, I mean, I did want to give you all, a chance to, if there are design changes or, especially now that you've had time to sit with your characters and actually play with them in a session, if there are things that you feel are off or not jiving or anything like that, we still have plenty of opportunity to push and pull with them a little bit. So I would say don't hold back. Okay, I think I'll probably give Nantaris a break and shift to another character for now. Probably be
Okay.
jumping around um, and see how far we get.
So, as you weren't here last session, Emma, what do you think of Kuro?
I think she looks great. Uh, er, I was kind of avoiding the art for the longest time, so I didn't actually get to really look at her until today. But she's a
Well,
sassy
I'm
little
glad to
demon
hear.
girl, and I love her. She's not actually a demon, she just has little horns. It's a style choice.
I always think it's interesting playing changelings because there's this kind of pull between having a defined who they are and what they look like, but also, well, I can change whenever I want. So you kind of like if you, because I always want the artwork of my character, but if you're playing a changeling, then you want like 90 bits of
Yes.
artwork for your character.
You have to pick your default
Yeah.
character. I don't know how many opportunities we'll have for her to change into different things for any reason in a dungeon, but who knows? Maybe she'll do it for funsies.
I
Maybe one day you'll all wake up and there's just a completely different person there, and then you have to figure it out.
That would be really interesting, actually, wouldn't it? No warning, just like different person. deal with it. I played a changeling who's they were a rogue who had been, they were like a very not very nice gang leader who did awful things, ended up being killed for doing those awful things, was made by the god of justice to relive every single nasty thing they'd ever done, and then was sent back to wipe out his old gang. And so he came back, and he was technically a changeling, but the god had made him a changeling and put this face on him that changed every 6 seconds into one of his victims' faces. So the entire time I was playing him, the face would change constantly. And then whenever he avenged or like killed one of the gang members, one of the faces would kind of appear. Then the mask would go full white, and that was kind of one of his penances paid. So that face wouldn't come up again on his mask. And then there was one point, and this is one of my absolute favourite bits of roleplay like that's ever happened. He died, and he went into like the afterlife, which is like a river, and he met the god of justice, and he was like, well, through all this like years of playing this game, he had kind of come to kind of align himself with this god of justice. So he asked to be sent back as her paladin of redemption and kind of like the voice of justice in the world. So he switched classes completely, went to be a paladin, came back to the world, and then was like, so he just had this white mask that he could occasionally change to look like other people.
That's cool.
So much fun to play. I think it's one of the things I love about role-playing games, and D&D kind of specifically, is that using the classes to make the character, not fitting the character to the classes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get a lot of wiggle room to try different things. And
yeah.
I also enjoy, this is very clear with Regal, where you're not always like just trying to do the best build, but you're just like, these are the stats I think that would fit the character. I think you would throw a brick at Regal and they wouldn't move. They'd probably just have to take it. Shouldn't have a negative dex, but it's kind of fun to play with the non-optimized characters.
Yeah.
Just as flawed as we are in real life. If you threw a brick at me, it'd probably hurt me too.
Speak for yourself. I'm perfect.
I have a negative dex. I know you have +5 everything, but we can't all be like you.
I have a negative constitution. That's for sure.
Oh, me too.
That thing about not optimizing your characters, like the first character I ever played in D&D was a full orc sorcerer, and you're like, that makes no sense. An orc does not have the stats for a sorcerer, but it was so good because you have to come up with balances and reasons and lore, and all of the backstory becomes such an important tool to know who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing it. I'll always play the non-optimized person with a flaw, because that's where the arc comes from, right?
Mm-hmm. There's room for improvement.
Makes for more interesting storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me.
Bless you.
It's really interesting how the values change the expression on the character's face.
Yeah, once you give something dimension, it adds a whole lot of dimension. It genuinely can change your perception of things. That the graphic read comes with its own baggage, I guess. It comes with its own assumptions or preconceptions, just based on like how we're exposed to that kind of media, and then you add something like value and try to help it pop and feel like it's in three-dimensional form, and like our brains start looking for different visual cues and responding differently to those
Yeah.
visual cues.
So it's like the very fact that Kuro's eyes are now in shadow makes her seem more mysterious and a bit not quite sinister, but there's definitely a I'm watching.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, there's an undertone about it.
Yeah.
She could become a problem at any time, and she will.
You've already been a problem.
It's what the character would do.
that that's a really interesting phrase because it's
I
like
hate it
so it's
as a DM.
it depends
I hate it.
how it depends. It's one of those weird things about you have a responsibility as a player to be a collaborator in the story. So if you're doing really kind of jarring, really kind of disruptive things and using it's what my character would do as an excuse, that's a really disruptive bad thing in my opinion. But
Mhm.
if you're genuinely like, well, actually, my character wouldn't do the most beneficial thing for the party right now because they've got their own goals and their own things, and you have to kind of you can use that phrase as a real kind of cornerstone of why your character does it, but it has to be consistent.
And if you're using it only really as an excuse once you're being called out by the other players for doing
Yeah,
something,
exactly
then
that.
it's
Yeah, it doesn't work, and it doesn't. It's one of the things. It's why I think we worked really well last session together. Is because we all were going. We know that we need to end up down through the yawning portal in the
together.
dungeon. So we were all driving that, but at the same time, our characters are our characters, and there's a reason that there's tension there. And again, it's that thing with tension of going, we have to do it in a way that adds to the story. And I think we did that together really well last session.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it changes and develops because I know for myself, Duntaris is very much it's an adventure. It's Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit. He's running out the Shire with a flap of paper telling him what that he's going on an adventure.
Yeah.
But with the hole in the wall, if you two had turned around and gone, no, don't be an idiot, he equally would have gone, yeah, okay. And he'd have just come back later and done it himself.
Yeah.
Because at the
No,
same
you
time,
waited long enough for Kuro's impulsive thoughts to win.
so make sure I give enough time for Kuro's impulsive thoughts to win, and then we can always have the fun thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Lethvargi will tell you off, demand that you do what he wants, and we'll do that.
And I will stand there and go, no food for you.
Yeah, you really should be nicer to our cook.
Who's got barrels of food in his bag of holding.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't know
handy.
how long I'm going down there for. Everyone needs a barrel of salted beef.
It's fine. Lethvargi's got 5 days of rations. It'll be plenty.
Yeah, I really don't want to have to resort to eating you because I don't think you'd be very tasty.
Oh, I am all sinew.
No, I like to eat better than that.
There is
Kuro has higher standards than that.
there is no fat on Lethvargi. He would taste awful.
Which is why I bought 2 dozen pastries, I think, in the bag of colding.
I love that the bag of colding is a thing.
Gotta keep all the food nice. Some of us expect to be down there more than 5 days.
I have a very distinct mission to do.
So we hear. We're just here to have a good time.
Tell us more.
I can't. Unfortunately. You'll have to watch the stream, everybody.
Where can they find the first episode, Rob?
It is. You can rewatch it on Twitch or on our YouTube, which are both Gold Mountain Games spelled out. We will be doing the next live one on Sunday at, I believe, 4:30 EST. Time zones are the bane of my existence, but I think that is right. But if you check our social medias, then it is advertised on there, and you will be able to find it. Yeah, I think we're going to run it pretty much every Sunday for this year. And we have, I think we're doing a few more of these live draw sessions as well.
For sure. I mean, we're halfway through this one, and I'm pretty confident we'll, get to a point where we have a pretty clear picture of the values, and you guys will get your say. And then the next step would be, making color and such. But it's my goal that these portraits sort of evolve as you guys go through the live play.
Yeah.
So with every episode of the stream, they should be further developed till they're, fully colored, fully rendered, fully presentable portraits.
I think there's going to be a really exciting point for me where Lethvagi takes his hood down. That's going to be an interesting session and live draw, I think.
We get to meet the character, the face on the back of his head.
Yes. Yeah, I think as well there's is the plan with these to do full bodies eventually?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, these are more for like the character tokens for the actual stream. But yeah, it's certainly a possibility as we keep going with this.
That would be very cool.
Full bodies, or an actual illustration of a part of the stream, or
cardboard cutouts. She could be standing right behind me.
Life-size cardboard cutouts.
All of the characters fighting in the middle of a dungeon as it all goes wrong.
All the characters fighting in a Denny's parking lot at 3 a.m.
Yes. Oh, he does look sinister, doesn't he?
No, he doesn't look friendly, I'll say that much.
He looks like someone who likes to eat rats.
No.
He does.
I'm a noble. I don't eat rats. I'm a noble. I have expensive, good tastes.
Expensive rats. Purebred rats.
Purebred rats. That's it.
I am really interested in finding out more about Lethvagi's kind of backstory and past.
I have to say I think it's probably in my top 2 backstories I've ever written. I'm very pleased with it. It's
out of how many backstories?
Oh, like 70, 80, 90, I don't know. When I had to delete down to 6 characters on D&D Beyond, I had to delete over 80 characters.
I had to take out quite a bit, but not that many.
Yeah. I enjoy making characters. I play in a lot of one shots and games, and I've kind of been on quite a few streams. So there is there are a lot of them, and tying backstories into worlds is one of my favourite things to do. Like I spent hours and hours with Lethvargi fitting him into the world. Like he is. I may have drawn his family tree. I'm things like that. I've he exists in the world properly, which is always fun. I've just got to remember it all.
That's the real trick of it.
Yeah.
That's what Google Docs is for.
Yes, exactly. I do like him.
Out of those 80 some characters, how many of them are nice people?
Where's the fun in that?
So
I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
Ethel was nice. Ethel was an 83-year-old barbarian of grief who had watched her husband die and had left her farm with his maul to go and find the creatures that killed her husband. And she was a grandma, and she was grandma to the group and did things like spat on a cloth and clean people's faces with it. She was very lovely, and then her rage was grief. So she would kind of get into this grief-stricken rage and was very, very good in combat, but out of combat she was a little old lady. She was nice. Other nice. So I did play a satyr she was nice. She wasn't particularly good, but she was nice. Most of my characters have quite a lot of either trauma, or they have a very clear, I want to do this and it's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't always make them nasty. It can.
In my experience with your past characters.
Ozzy wasn't nasty.
Ozzy was nice.
He was great. He was an orc.
Ozzy was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's one of my absolute favourite bits of art you've ever done, Evan. I love Ozzy. He's fantastic. He's he's one of the orcs from our Saltreach Isles setting for those watching. And here's a good place to plug our new Kickstarter. So on the 3rd of February we've got our second zine being launched on Kickstarter. It's a zine basically concentrating on the elven city of Mythalion, which is in our setting of the Saltreach Isles, the main island of Oscana. Again, you can find that through all of our social media. But yeah, that's coming out, and eventually I think there's going to be 9 of them in total, and they'll all concentrate on different areas of the island of Oscana, and then when they're all out we'll be releasing the full settings book. So yeah, that's exciting and coming up in not too long. And yeah, so Ozzy was an orc from Oscana who was a wizard who liked to punch people.
All right, I think we're at a good spot for a check-in. How's everyone still feeling about their characters?
I think they all look great.
Okay.
I love the as I said before with like Kuro and also with Lethvargi, the shadow and the it just adds so much depth to the character, right? It adds it makes the expression mean something. Just wondering if... Now, I might be wrong here, Evan, but on
Yeah.
Lefragi's face, is the shadow too in line with his brow?
I mean, it is. We're taking some liberties. We can certainly shift that if you prefer.
Maybe not to have it so straight. Yeah, yeah. I think that just makes it not kind of the direct line across. Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Make sure he looks nice and friendly.
He's really lovely. He likes cuddles, long walks on the beach, pina coladas.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, normally the next point here would be for me to like really take out the line work entirely and start painting back in so they feel like what they feel like with the line work. Um, so I like to start sandwiching that line work in between. I'll make a new layer, get my usual chunky painterly brush, and start painting over that line work. So this is probably a good place to go to color, unless we want to get more precise with these value portraits. I don't know that. I think we're at a point of diminishing returns here, though, for the scope time we have.
Fair.
So let me think about that. I mean, I'll probably start just moving into color,
Yep.
but we might treat this as that stopping point for that next stage of character tokens for the stream. And in the interim, I'll just see what we can do and start painting over them.
Sorry if people heard that. My central heating seemed to have had a hissy fit. Nentaris, we've just heard from the chat that your conspiracy rant is being praised. They enjoyed that. Vargi did not.
Oh, I think it's going to grow on him. I have lots. I have like a lot, and it's
Good.
I may or may not be making an Obsidian file system, so I can hopefully at some point share a screenshot of the actual web of conspiracies. Because what I'd love to do it on my actual wall behind me. I don't have enough twine for what my head's envisioning.
I like Lethvargi is one, the conspiracies involve him and his family and the nobles, right? So he's never going to be too fond of it. But also,
This time it's personal.
yeah, it's also just like Lethvargi doesn't suffer fools, and he definitely thinks Nentaris is a fool so far. There's also a question, Leo, about does Nentaris have a Fey court?
At present, he would be considered a wild Fae. I would need to double check his backstory to confirm where he's originally from and which court he was from. But at the minute, because of where he is and how he got there, he would class himself if asked as a wild Fae.
Interesting. I always find the Fey courts are so open to interpretation because they are. I think there's a tendency to be like, well, the summer and spring courts are good, and the autumn and winter courts are bad. But it's more. I think the Archfey and the Fey courts are much more kind of Cthulhu-esque in their they are alien. They don't have, they don't play by the same rules as the mortal realm, or the material plane even.
Yeah, it was one of the things that I spent a lot of time digging into when I was kind of constructing the Antares background, and as things come to light in the campaign, to not spoil it for you and Emma.
You want to take my headphones off?
No, it's fine. It's all fun backstory stuff that I want you two to experience. So, yeah, as things come to light about Antares and how he is the way he is and how he got there, trying to make what I'd envision work, it was like a solid evening's worth of me reading everything from D&D Wiki to the module books I've got and read it before I kind of settled on, actually, this concept with this background and this section of the Feywild and that, I can have this kind of somewhat coming across unhinged character.
Yeah.
We love an unhinged character. Or I do.
I think there's it's really interesting playing characters that are tied into a setting that has so much history to it. Because you can just go, it's big enough to go, I'm just a somebody, and I'm not actually tied to any of these important things because my character so far is unimportant. But you can do anything from that to what I've pretty much done with Lethvargi, which is, no, he's tied to 15 different bits of history. There are things that have happened in the setting that have directly influenced his upbringing and his character and all of this kind of stuff. And I think when I first started playing D&D, the reason I homebrewed everything was because it's such a large amount of information to digest and use, and I think there's a fear people have of going, what if I get it wrong? What if I say a thing in this campaign and it doesn't fit with canon? And like, for anyone watching this who is like a bit unsure of it, doesn't matter. Because it's ultimately it's the DM's job to tie it all in, and they will. And it doesn't matter if it's canon because we're not playing the campaign doesn't become canon unless it's an official thing. But most of the time, it's not.
It's one of the reasons why if I run a campaign, I prefer to run homebrew. Because while I love the modules, I really like we said earlier, the collaborative storytelling element. So the campaign that I'm starting up with some of my friends, I've turned around and said, if you want to add in a random guild, a village, if you want to pad out the homebrew world I've made, do it. Pop it into the Discord, pop it onto the relevant channel. And as far as I'm concerned, it becomes canon, because it means when this campaign ends, if we want to do another campaign in the same setting, we've got more flavour that we've collectively built.
Yep.
And it just means at that point, it's not just solely on me having to make the damn homebrew world, because while I enjoy it, I can get
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And, I love the creative writing element of it. But my ability to make complex city maps is non-existent. and
Mm-hmm.
I could sit there for hours with Incarnate or a sketch pad and write and dice and do all the various things I've seen on TikTok or YouTube. And I'm still looking at it going, I'm not happy with that.
That's just art, dude.
I don't
Um,
know. I think for me, it comes to the fact that I quite like woodworking. And for me, woodworking,
Oh,
a lot of it is fixed. Carving obviously is slightly different, but if I wanted to make you a desk, Evan, the dimensions are fixed. I can draw them and scale it up because I work in numbers.
yeah.
It's
okay.
just how my brain works.
Well, I'm envious.
I think it's interesting because the first thing I do when I'm writing a setting or a homebrew or anything, I do the map. I do the I do the map, the kingdoms, the theocracies, the all of the geological things that make up the cultures that are in the world, and I kind of do the creative writing, the actual writing part, very near the end. But then I do a similar thing to you. I give the players an outline and go, here's the basics. Now you can fill in whatever you need to fill in within that structure to bring your backstory to life, to bring your character to life. And then once I've got all the backstories, I then do the final fleshing out and the creative writing of it, so you can really intertwine those backstories with whatever's going on in the world.
Interesting.
I do tend to trip myself up though, because I make very big, very large, very complex worlds. Thanks, Cat. Um, and then I have to remember it all.
Well, I got to imagine that some of the, looking at a map and saying I'm happy with this comes from like your desired goal for that map. Like Rob, I imagine that you make your maps for, as a form of note keeping, as a form of iteration, as a form of fleshing out your world for your own sake, not like to publish or to, to put in a book
Yeah,
or to, yeah. So I mean that definitely has a different bar of, you know, getting, how do I get this to a point where I'm happy with it, as opposed to like I want to make a beautiful Tolkien-esque map of
yes,
this
exactly
town
that.
that I'm homebrewing.
Yes, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't, in the kind of games I run, you don't ever kind of get to a finished point where that is then, well, that's done, because there's always another story to tell. There's always something could come and change the world. So yeah, I think you're right. It's a tool I use to kind of attach stories to, rather than it's a finished thing. There we go.
Right. We're coming up on 450 here, and I'm just kind of noodling at Burrow's eyes here, but um, I think we're in a good place as far as values go. I'm glad that you
Yeah,
guys are feeling happy with them. I'll probably keep refining them a little bit before kicking them over to Katie for character tokens, but I think we got a good, next step for these guys, and then for the next art stream, we can really focus on getting them more fully realized and start getting some color in them. So that'll be fun.
yeah. I think
They're
that.
gonna look really bad for a while. They're
I
gonna it's just like this after this, it's like it's the ugly phase again, and then it's all of a sudden not. So I ask everybody to be patient with me as we make our way through that.
I mean, they look fantastic. Even
Yeah.
they are, you know, as I said, like
Well,
there's
thank
so
you.
much. There's character. There's kind of personality in them, and it's lovely to see. Like, and I think from a player point of view, it's really helpful to be able to picture what Kuro looks like when she's reacting to something that Lethargi's done. If you've got that image in your head, you can it's easier to role play against and feed off.
Yeah. Well, next up, character sheet, expression sheets.
That'll be cool. Lovely.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'll call it there. But I think we're in a fun place, and I'm having fun with the series. I hope everyone else is. I hope you guys are. I hope
Yeah.
anyone who's watching is. And I'm excited to see, these three really come to life. I'm excited to see what else happens on the stream and
Yeah,
see it all come together.
we're not far away now. What are we? We've just hit Friday, so 2 and a bit days, and we'll be into session 2. So that thank you everyone who has joined us. We, as I said, will be live streaming on Sunday, and then they'll be going up. That session will be going up onto YouTube on either Sunday night or Monday. As I said, please do check out our upcoming Kickstarter. And yeah, we've got quite a lot going on this year, so do follow us on all of the social medias. And yeah, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
See you, everybody.
Cheers,
See you
guys.
guys.
Bye bye.
Yeah.